God, you're gonna love it.
Hey folks, welcome to the AI Chicks, where we're providing you cool conversations about AI for all. With each episode bringing you a different topic on how AI impacts your daily lives. I'm your host, Aisha Wynn, always bringing the fun insight on tech. And I got my bestie here.
Hi guys, I'm Lana Hout. I'm bringing the curls, the charisma, and that entrepreneurial energy. Today, we are talking about AI and the food industry. And we're going to be covering a lot of different aspects about the food industry, from farm to table, manufacturing, distribution, consumer product goods, and everything in between.
Yeah, make sure you've already eaten, because listen to this episode may make you hungry. We have an amazing expert joining us, Andreas Duess, who is the founder of Succeed Consulting, which is an agency that helps CPG companies with AI and data insights. So let's get into it.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Andreas, would you please introduce yourself to our listeners and tell them a little bit about your background?
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure. I was born in Germany many years ago, and I was born on a farm, super beautiful, bucolic upbringing, nature all around me. And like, any self-respecting teenager, I ran away from that as quickly as I possibly could. And I ended up in London in the UK, worked as a line cook during my years at university. I ended up in early tech. So I ended up in a marketing agency that focused on technology, worked with early Google and also with early AI companies like Autonomy. And that was one of the early things where a computer could make sense out of words by understanding the context of the words, is probably the best way of putting it. And then I met the girl who's now my wife, who has like an equally adventurous spirit to myself, and we decided to have a look around the world, and we ended up living in Toronto. And I accidentally started an ad agency that focused on food and drink. That kind of grew from one freelance client into, I don't want to say 36, 38 staff, offices in Toronto and Montreal. And we grew this for like 15 years. And then a couple of years ago, a friend of mine, she calls me up and she said, I want to show you something, but you can't talk about it. And that was an early large language model. And it was two things. It was absolutely terrible, and it was very clearly the future. I'm old enough to remember when we shot commercials, when we swapped from film to digital. And everybody laughed about digital because it was terrible and nobody took it seriously. And then one day it wasn't terribly anymore. And 6 months later, the world had changed. I could see the same thing happening with AI. So the opportunity arose for me to sell my company, all my shares in the company. I owned 50% of it. And I took that opportunity because it gave me the freedom to figure out what to do in this new world. I had some partners and we stepped back and we took a good 6 months to figure out what was going on. We learned everything we could learn about AI. We really went deep into our connection to tech. And then because we had this food experience, we decided to stay in that arena. And the problem we decided to solve was the 82% problem. And what this means is 82% of all new food products that come into the market fail within 2 years. And so we said, well, what can we do to solve this problem? And we talked to people, and everybody claimed they were using data. But if you're using data and you still have an 82% failure rate, then something's wrong with the data, or something's wrong with the application of that data, right? We did a deep dive into what data people are using, and it turned out that most people were using self-reported data. A lot of people were making decisions based on data scraped by some means from social media. And we all know that people on social media will lie to your face and then do something completely different. We call it the say-do gap. So we started looking around for data that didn't rely on being self-reported, but that was observed. And then we found a whole bunch of data sources. So we're now getting data in, for example, from the food delivery services, from the Instacarts of this world. We're getting data from credit card companies. We're getting data from smart fridges. So we're getting data from restaurant menus and from food delivery companies. So we know what people really do. And if there's people saying, we only eat organic food and I have 3 salads a day, and really what they're buying is a bucket of Smarties and a bucket of ice cream, right? And that gets eaten. And then, the smart fridge data tells us that all these lettuces are gently rotting away until finally, somebody throws them away and puts them out of their misery. So we have all this data, and then, of course, it gets cross-referenced against the public conversation. But we have about 1 trillion data points we're working with. And so on top of this is an AI layer that allows us to interact with that data. And then that allows us to help our clients to create products people want to buy.
It's so interesting that you mentioned this say-do gap, because we actually experienced that in the entertainment industry. A lot of companies do focus groups on like a project or a sizzle or a feature film, a trailer before it gets released. And then you hear all of these people, because when you're a part of a focus group, you're being prompt to give criticism. So when you're prompt to give criticism, they're going to critique it. They always want things that are educational, empowering, feel good, do good type of content. That's what they tend to lean into when they say that. But then the projects that actually get a lot of the views are the projects with the drama and the violence and the true crime and the hot messes, So it's interesting that you talk about that observation data point and really needing to make sure that the data of your AI is something that's true to really build out whatever that business plan or product or next step for a company is so important.
So you have just set me on the path of geekiness. We do something really, really cool with this. So what you just observed, focus groups, there's always somebody like me. I am full of opinions, and you can't see this. I am 6'6". I'm a big boy. I have many opinions. I go in there, and typically lots of people just agree with me just to shut me up.
Andreas knows thyself.
And so what we do for our clients these days, we build AI-powered digital focus groups.
You know that feeling when someone shows up for you just when you need it most? That's what Uber is all about. Not just a ride or dinner at your door. It's how Uber helps you show up for the moments that matter. Because showing up can turn a tough day around or make a good one even better. Whatever it is, big or small, Uber is on the way. So you can be on yours. Uber, on our way.
And we started building these personas, going to people and paying them a couple of $100 and asking them 200 questions. And then one of our engineers came and said, that's a waste of time and money. We can do the same thing just with the data that's out there. Same results. So we started building these personas. So now the data that I mentioned earlier on, all these observed data, right? And let's use rice as an example, just because we have a bunch of rice clients. We can tell what's important in rice consumption to a 30-year-old woman with Latino background living in LA versus a 60-year-old guy with Chinese American background living in Miami. Like, we can tell the difference from an emotional and from a practical point of view. Now we can create digital twins of these people. And we train the model with the observed behavior data of consumers that are a 35-year-old Latina woman and a 60-year-old Chinese American man. And then we can ask them questions.
Wow.
The first time we did this, I had to sit down because the quality of the answers was so three-dimensional and so emotionally aware. I did not expect this. There was one sentence in our Chinese American person. He talked about family recipes. And he said, there is this importance to use traditional products for the recipes my mother told me. And then he said, and I feel this deep in my bones. And I was like, you're an AI character. How can you say things like that? What this told me is we did a really good job creating an artificial person. Now, because you might look at me, because you know about these things, you might roll your eyes and you might say, but how accurate is this really? And I was so glad because Stanford conveniently did a research study on this. So they took 1,000 digital people and compared them to their 1,000 flesh and blood twins and asked them the same question, and the overlapping answer was 92%.
That's pretty accurate.
Wow. Yeah.
Your digital personality
Yeah.
to know how you would have answered that
Mhm.
question. I think that's pretty good.
That's pretty
And,
epic.
it saves a lot of time and money, right? Because you have to find people who are willing to sit and either try products or, in your world, Aisha, watch movies or watch TV shows
Yeah.
and then give the feedback. And then once they give their answers, everyone has to aggregate the answers and come up with a consensus.
Yeah.
So there's definitely, obviously, use cases here. But yeah, I never even really thought about it in terms of focus groups.
The AI chicks, you could build yourself a digital audience. And then you could run future show ideas by your digital audience and ask your digital audience how they'd react to it.
All right. So we might be teaming up with you to figure out what season 3 will be like.
Come up with an idea, run it by our digital audience.
Yeah.
And then run the episode
And
then
see how
if
do
the
a
reaction
comparison game.
Yeah.
I know. We test a lot of AI tools out, so we're definitely going to put this one on our list.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. We want to make sure that we get AI's take.
Today we're going to ask specifically Pi AI about AI and the food industry.
According to Pi, AI has various applications in the food industry, such as precision agriculture, food safety, recipe creation, and supply chain management. In precision agriculture, AI analyzes data to help farmers optimize crop yields, reduce waste, and minimize pesticide use. AI also contributes to food safety by monitoring production processes and detecting potential safety issues. Additionally, AI can generate innovative recipes by analyzing data on flavor profiles, ingredient compatibility, and consumer preferences. Furthermore, AI optimizes logistics and reduces waste in supply chain management by predicting demand, monitoring inventory levels, and coordinating deliveries.
AI does all of these things to varying degrees. That's absolutely true. But I think where AI really shines, there are applications where AI supports things that have been going on for a long time. And there are applications where AI enables us to do things that really we were not able to do before. In science, the most important words are not "Eureka, I found it." The most important words are, "Huh, that's funny." AI helps us take those, "Huh, that's weird," or "Huh, that's funny" moments and actually do something with them. One of the things AI helps to do us in food is to follow up on ideas. So let's say you're a guacamole manufacturer, for argument's sake, right? And typically, you pay somebody to get rid of your waste. And now with AI is really good to figure out, is there anything we could do with those peels? And then the AI comes back and says, sure, it contains the following ingredients, it contains the following oils, it contains the following fibers. You could make vegan leather out of them. You could sell the oil to the cosmetics industry. And then you may say, all right, who should I talk to? Well, here is a company in Indiana that buys every year 3 metric tons of avocado peels. And then all of a sudden, you may have turned a waste product into income. But that's just one of the examples that we use it for in our business all the time. It answers the what-if questions. And I give you an example. We're currently working with a company to create products that are specifically designed to appeal to Ozempic patients, right? The wonder drug. And it's the first way to lose weight that doesn't rely on willpower. So Walmart actually run data on this. If somebody's an Ozempic patients, they spend 30% less at Walmart in the grocery than non-Ozempic patients. So one of the things that we're using our data for that client is to help them develop products that appeal to Ozempic patients. So that means they're high in fiber, they're high in protein, and they're high in nutrients. Because now you're eating less, your food needs to be higher quality. One of the side effects of Ozempic is that the food moves slower to your body. So high fiber is really important. And high protein is just a really good thing in general for Ozempic patients because it does, it helps the body to reduce the fat. the body
Process
fat.
it. Yeah.
That's just an interesting example of how innovation always disrupts.
Massively.
Yeah. I like that, you're really leaning on the innovation part of it. For me, I just really liked that Pi AI touched on the farmers and agriculture side of it. We're always hearing about AI and robotics for the manufacturing of goods, in the smart home space of using AI for recipes and things of that nature, but really haven't heard too much on AI in the farmers and agriculture space. We do have a lot of supply and demand issues. Crops help with climate. There is a much bigger benefit of AI in the food industry. And I definitely was not thinking about the farmer and agricultural space when this topic came up.
Yeah, and I think oftentimes people have the reference point of how they view technology. Oh, they only view technology and AI being used in marketing analytics, or they only looked at it in manufacturing. But really, you can use technology in the entire life cycle, from farming the plant, the pesticides, the manufacturing process, how to streamline that, really thinking about technology being used in every step of the process from farm to table, but then also how it's really impacting the consumer.
Yeah, it really is in every single facet.
How much can I make this for if I want to sell this for, I don't know, $15 a meal? How much margin do I need to allow for the retailer? How does distribution work? How does frozen distribution work? Right? So the AI can help you with all the data and all the support and all the knowledge you need to bring it to life in a way that would not have been possible a year ago.
I would love to hear more about how AI should be implemented for a startup or a company, because some of the things that we're talking about now, it feels like this is what you do before you even get started. What are you seeing in the marketplace?
Yeah, 100%. Where entrepreneurs can make the most of these newfound superpowers, you need to start treating them like a coworker. Not like something you occasionally fire up, but something that becomes part of the everyday workflow. The way to have this is not to say, write me a marketing plan or write me 10 Instagram posts. You couldn't do that, but that's very surface level. The way to integrate AI is to integrate it into conversations. Everything we do is AI first. We record every conversation with clients. We record many internal conversations. And the reason we do this is because it allows us to develop patterns, and it allows us to see patterns of things that are happening in our business. We had a conversation with a client recently where we were working on a project. We wanted feedback. We recorded an hour-long conversation. I had ChatGPT analyze the conversation and then say, okay, turn this into a proposal. And within half an hour, we've done two days of work. I give you a fun little example. I think all three of us have written emails to people who don't want to talk to us. It's like, hi, just following up, and you sound a little bit desperate. You sound like that spurned lover. It's like, hi, and it's never a great look. And so I was writing one of those, and I felt like a complete idiot. There has to be a better way. And I did some research, and there is this woman from Texas. Her name is Vanessa van Edwards. She is an absolute expert on teaching you how to get other people to do what you want them to do. Body language and phraseology and all those kinds of things. And I said, okay, I'm going to take my sad-ass email. I'm going to upload it to ChatGPT. And then I'm going to say, look, I know this isn't very good. How would Vanessa do this? The very first thing it said, or was explained to me, was that Vanessa has this thing about opening emails and said, instead of saying, hey, just checking in on how this project is going, which clearly isn't going, Vanessa said something like, hey, the last time we spoke, you said. Or you open with, I was just talking to John, and he mentioned the following, which made me think of you.
Wow.
There are other things that she does and recommends. I have built myself a digital Vanessa van Edwards custom GPT. Whenever I'm writing an email that is needs refinement like this, I run it through my digital Vanessa. My response rate has increased by an easy 50%.
It tends to recall what you said previously. So you could really have a GPT for each function of your business.
Yes.
And then it can be this ongoing conversation that really is personalized to your business and that function of your business.
Running a business comes with a lot of what ifs, but luckily there's a simple answer to them. Shopify. It's the commerce platform behind millions of businesses, including Thrive Cosmetics and Momofuku, and it'll help you with everything you need. From website design and marketing to boosting sales and expanding operations, Shopify can get the job done and make your dream a reality. Turn those what ifs into... Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer.
I really loved the guacamole example because I think will resonate with a lot of our food manufacturing listeners. But I think a lot of the times the product is great, but they're having an issue on the marketing side. They're having an issue getting marketing share because, as you know, the food market is obviously very competitive. There's a lot of big multinational brands, and to just get even shelf space in a supermarket is very competitive. And we've seen examples of brands that the minute they did a rebrand,
It took off.
it took off, and everyone started eating that product, and it was pretty much the game changer. Can you talk a little bit about how AI is being used in that space to take what would be a good product but really make it great amongst the consumers?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we had this client of ours, and it is a gluten-free cheese puff, and it just puffs up, and they're really delicious. My kids love them. It's a frozen product, and you're supposed to bake them at home. Beautiful packaging, lovely product, really delicious, beautiful packaging. Got listed, but then they got unlisted because they didn't achieve the velocity the retailers were asking for. Velocity meaning the number of sales. And so they came to us and said, well, we need to run a marketing campaign. We need to run an ad campaign. We think it's because people don't understand where that's going. And so what we did, we had a data deep dive, and we looked at what was important to people in the frozen snack category. And then we looked at how they were positioning their product against this. And so when you looked at the bake-at-home instructions, like you had to preheat your oven, then you had to bake it for 35 minutes, and then you had to wait for 10 minutes to cool down, and by which time 50 minutes had passed. But our data that we had looked at said that people were not interested in this because kids aren't allowed to use the oven by themselves. Feels like cooking when you use an oven. It was too long for a snack and a whole bunch of other things. So I called the client and I said, have you ever tried those in an air fryer? And they said, no. So I took them home, I chucked them in an air fryer at home, and they came out, to my taste, they came out absolutely brilliant. So I called the client again, and I said, hey, can you do me a favor? Can you buy 5 air fryers? Can you buy from the cheapest to like a really super deluxe model? I want to try something out. We put the product in the air fryers, didn't matter how much the air fryer cost, they came out beautifully. So what we did was they were refreshing their packaging. They were running a new print run. On the front of the packaging in big letters, we said air fryer friendly. On the back of the packaging, we put air fryer instructions. And guess what they said? Do not preheat, 15 minutes at 400 degrees, enjoy. Then we went to our retailers and said, can we have an action going on here, a marketing action, where we put clings on the freezer doors with the brand, and it just says air fryer friendly. Within 6 months, they had increased their sales by 18%, 18%. Right? And that was just because we understood what was the real motivation and what was important to consumers. And that then creates a synergy between the brand and the consumer, where the brand doesn't shout into the void about things nobody cares about. And consumers get stuff they might actually say, well, this actually makes my life better.
I think we just need this tool for everything at this point. I know we're talking about it for the food industry, but I feel like any other person that is looking for servicing their pain points in a consumer goods, or product-driven company, they would love something like this.
I guess my question for you, Andreas, when you're talking with people who are newer food entrepreneurs in the food space, what kind of AI platforms should they be using?
Yeah, what would be the AI tools you recommend?
Yeah, so ChatGPT is not a bad start at all, but it is generalist, right? And the way to make ChatGPT work has as much, if not more, to do with the questions than the answers. So working with us, working with Succeeds, my company, is not cheap. And it's not cheap because our data costs are so high and our data is so specific that if you don't have a $50,000 budget, there is really very little we can do for companies. So our clients have between $10 and $100 million in sales. However, we got approached by a lot of food entrepreneurs. And so about a year ago, together with a friend of mine, and she actually launched this and then asked me if I'd be interested in joining. I'm a co-founder in an AI-powered mentor app called GoCPG. And Go CPG, so it'll say, do you have a website? And if it has a website, it sucks all the information in. And then it asks you a whole bunch of questions about yourself and about your company and about your motivation. And then it tells you, look, here's the market opportunity, if there is one. Here are things where your thinking is already strong. Here are things where you need to start working on. And by the way, we're going to stay with you for the next 2 years, and we're going to help you every single step of the way. And we're at the MVP stage, so we haven't implemented all the things that we want to implement. But in a couple of months from now, the app will call you on a Friday or at a time that you set it, and you'll say, hey, what's going on? Do you have any questions? How are you feeling, by the way? Is everything going the way you want it to do? What's like your most burning problem this week? Or you're driving to a meeting with a retailer and you're nervous and scared because you've never done this before. And you just pick up the app and you say, I'm nervous and scared. I'm just about to go to a retailer. And the app will say, well, what are you scared about? Like, what worries you? Well, it worries me that I'm not getting across all the points that make it special. Okay, let me remind you about all the things that make you special, etc., etc. So you have with you this positive guiding force that has your best interests at heart and knows all about the food industry there is to know.
I love that it's hyper-focused to that specific industry.
Before we wrap up, I want to make sure that we get a couple of our games in.
Yeah.
We just went straight into this conversation.
Because Andreas is just a wealth of knowledge.
I know. I want to eat after this, and I want to also come up with some more food products. But before we do that, Andreas, we play this game called the Nickname Game, where we like to give all of our guests a nickname and induct them into the AI squad.
He's like our foodie.
Okay.
Mr. Foodie.
Mr. Foodie, throwing that one out there. I also like, his last name is Duess.
Oh, yeah? Oh, so we could play with that.
Yeah. And so I was thinking, deuces. You gave us all the information, you gave us all these gems, and now you're like, deuces. All right, we got Mr. Foodie and we got deuces.
Mr. Foodie, I think, works.
Well, Mr. Foodie is now in the AI squad, and we really, really, really appreciate you joining us, Andreas. This was very insightful because I really was not expecting AI to be in so many different facets of the food industry, number one, and then number two, all of the intricacies of how you and your company use AI to help companies is just very, very impressive.
It's always great to hear real life examples and stories of how it's really used, because I think a lot of times we can talk about AI in a general way. And having very specific, I helped this product out or I helped this manufacturer out. I think that really gives a lot of color.
Yeah, the major lesson here from Mr. Foodie, start having conversations with AI. Make it your coworker, make it a companion. Thanks for sharing everything with our listeners. Hope you enjoyed it here, Andreas.
Thanks for listening to my ramblings.
Thank you all for listening. We hope that you enjoyed this conversation on AI and the food industry. We covered a lot. Make sure to subscribe, tune in. And what else, Lana?
Don't forget to grab the merch.
That's right. All right, everyone. Take care. Bye.
Listen to the AI Chicks on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Video episodes are available on Patreon. And check out our socials at The AI Chicks.